Have I got battery this time? Yes. This is the third time recording this, the battery keeps running out, but let's get on with today's video. It is our countdown to Christmas, and today is the 12th of December. So we've got another video where we're going to be putting some Necron units up against one another, working out the advantages, disadvantages, and talking about which one I would select if we were to build a list around those units. Now yesterday's video we talked about the Scorpion Lord going up against the Locust Lord, so if you've missed that one, find that down in the playlist below. Very similar characters going up against one another. But as for today's video, we've got the Flayed ones going up against the Canoptek Spyders. Two melee units that are pretty slow. In fact, before getting into today's video, just remember the giveaway for this Combat Patrol box set. All you need to do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which of these units you would prefer to take. You don't need to say why, but if you do, even better. Let's get on with today's video. First comparison is the points cost. Well, you're looking at 50 points for 5 Flayed ones, or 200 points if you're taking a full unit of 20 of them, which is what we're going to be looking at today, a full unit of 20 Flayed ones. And when you've got the Canoptek Spyders, well, they're 60 points a piece. You can get 3 of them for 180 points, which is 20 points cheaper, but there are a lot of upgrade options that you can take with those Canoptek Spyders. So in fact, they will be slightly more expensive once you've added the ranged weapons on, as well as the Gloom Prism, of course. So they're both core units, they're both elite options. The Flayed ones are infantry units, and the Canoptek Spyders are monsters. So let's just get those keywords out the way and actually start some comparisons. Right, onto the datasheet. So within the datasheet, the Canoptek Spyders are slightly quicker, only by 1 inch, but they do also have the fly keyword, so that's quite important. They've got a better ballistic skill, but the Flayed ones don't really need the ballistic skill, do they? Strength and toughness 6, whereas the Flayed ones are only strength and toughness 4. And they've got a 3+ armor save, whereas the Flayed ones only have a 4+. So that's the stats that the Canoptek Spider wins at. What about the Flayed ones? Do they win at anything? Well, they actually win in 3. First of all, the weapon skill is a 3+, not a 4+, because they're not Canoptek. Second of all, the wounds. Now, they normally have 1 wound a model, but in this video we're talking about 20 Flayed ones going up against 3 Canoptek Spyders, so that's going to be 20 wounds going up against 18 wounds, so the Flayed ones are going to win in terms of wounds. And as for the attacks, the Flayed ones have got 3 attacks base, so in fact that is 60 attacks combined, whereas with the Canoptek Spyders, they've only got 5 attacks base, so that only comes to 15 attacks in total. So it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that there's 20 wounds here with 60 attacks for the Flayed ones, so I'm going to give that point to the Flayed ones. Next we're going to talk about unique abilities for the unit, starting off with those Flayed ones. First of all, the Dimensional Translocation ability, so they've got the ability to deep strike them in. Much better when you've got a unit of 5 of them to come in quite easily, whereas when you've got a unit of 20 of them, that footprint is much larger. It's quite hard to get them in, especially in the smaller games. The second one is Flesh Hunger, so 6 to hit will score an additional hit against a non-vehicle model. Again, when you've got 60 attacks, right there on average that's going to be 10 6s that automatically get you an additional hit. And the third ability that's unique is the Terrifying Foes Aura ability, so if you're within 3 inches of an enemy unit, that's a -2 to their leadership. That's going to synergize with a few things that we'll talk about later in this video. That's the Flayed ones. As for the Canoptek Spyders, first of all, the Scarab Hive ability to be bringing back a Canoptek Scarab in your command phase, pretty nice. Secondly, the Fabricator Claw Array, which is actually an upgrade option for 5 points, and it allows you to heal a vehicle model D3 lost wounds. And the other optional piece of war gear for 5 points is the Gloom Prism, where this Canoptek Spider can deny the witch. Only one single model can deny the witch from that unit, so don't be putting a Gloom Prism on all 3 of these models because it's not going to be needed. So looking at all the abilities from the 2 units there, I think I prefer the Canoptek Spyders abilities more. The Scarab Hive ability I find really useful because I really like the Canoptek Scarabs, I play with them loads. And getting more additional hits with the Flesh Hunger ability with the Flayed ones, I don't think you need it because you've got 60 attacks as it is, and if you really wanted to, you can fight again. Again, we'll talk about that later. So the Canoptek Spider will win that one. Let's get on to the unique synergy. Now before going into the unique synergy, in fact, I wanted to mention a couple of things that they're both going to work well with. So first of all, the Novuk Dynasty, of course, for a +1 to the charge roll, an extra bit of AP on top of that, and potentially using the Bloodright Stratagem for an additional attack. Both of these units can do that, but I thought I'd get this in somewhere in the video, and this may be the perfect place to put this. But as for more unique synergy, first of all, with the Flayed ones, you've got the Shadows of Drazak Stratagem, which is a -1 to hit your Flayed ones for 1 command point. I don't use that one, to be honest with you, I'm not really big on that one, but sometimes desperate times calls for desperate measures. The second one is the one I've already mentioned, which is Storm of Cleansing Blades. This allows your Flayed ones to fight again in that same fight phase. So if you've got 60 attacks and you're fighting again, pretty good. Now, you're not likely to have all 60 attacks because it happens at the end of the fight phase, so you will likely have lost some of your Flayed ones models. Now, if you were to synergize with other units within the Codex, you can get a Chronomancer, for example, giving them the rerollable charge roll and a 5+ invulnerable save. Now you can also put the Dimensional Sanctum on this Chronomancer to be popping them in alongside the Flayed ones, but don't forget you are missing the command phase if you're coming in the movement phase, and the Chronometron ability happens in the command phase. So you'll have to wait a turn in order to put your invuln save and a rerollable charge roll on your Flayed ones, which is kind of pointless because if you're coming in from Deep Strike, you want to be making that 9-inch charge, potentially an 8-inch charge with the Nova Dynasty, probably better served with other Crypteks, such as the Psychomancer, not a character that I tend to take that often, but he's got the Nightmare Shroud ability, which is a -1 to enemy leadership, which is obviously going to stack alongside the Flayed one's ability for a -2 to their leadership. So if you've got a total of -3 leadership, that could potentially make enemy units run away. And you can actually use this same kind of trick with the Catan Shard of the Deceiver, because he's got the Cosmic Insanity ability, which is where you roll against an enemy leadership, and for every point that you roll more than their leadership value, you score a mortal wound. So if you're -2 to their leadership with the Flayed ones, maybe another one with the Psychomancer, you've already got a head start of 3 to then try and get your Catan Shard to roll some mortal wounds against them. Now admittedly, both of those units, the Psychomancer as well as the Catan Shard of the Deceiver, they're not commonly used, so you're not going to see that synergy as often, but yeah, that is unique to the Flayed ones. Something else unique to the Flayed ones is the Army of Renown, which is the Annihilation Legion. They can be selected for the Annihilation Legion, and when you've got 10 or more within a unit, they actually gain objective secured. Now further to add to that, they've got some unique stratagems such as Lurking Murderers, so if they're within an area terrain feature, they're going to get to reroll all their wound rolls, and the second one is a Moment of Clarity, which gives them objective secured. Now maybe you've not got a unit of 10 or more of them, maybe you've got a unit of 5 of them, so you can still give them objective secured by using that stratagem. Right, so that is the Flayed ones. What about the Canoptek Spyders? First of all, I want to mention the Technomancer, taking the Canoptek control node for a +1 to hit, so that Canoptek weapon skill ballistic skill goes to a 3+ and not a 4+. Second of all, the failsafe Overcharger, to be adding D3 attacks as opposed to 1, because this is a monster unit. And then third of all, the Rites of Reanimation ability, to be bringing back one of the spiders within the unit because it is a core model. There's nothing better than bringing back a 60+ point model just by using one ability in the command phase. Other synergy of note for the spiders is the Canoptek Scarabs, of course, to be bringing one back with the Scarab Hive ability. Then you've got the Enslaved Protector stratagem, which is for one command point. Any Canoptek unit can take this in fact, and you can heroically intervene as if you were a character. Now if you were to take a Gloom Prism, of course that's going to be a Deny the Witch power, but you could link that with other units such as Illuminazares or the Silent King, or even the Zerakan Dynasty, because there's a lot of Deny the Witch facilities, whether it's the Empiric Damping stratagem, or those two units that we just mentioned, they've got their own Deny the Witch abilities. And finally, the Canoptek Spyders can of course use their own Army of Renown, which is the Cult of the Cryptek, and there's quite a lot of unique things they can do within there. First of all, you get a +1 attack, and then second of all, there's 3 stratagems that are available that are unique to the Canoptek Spyders. First of all, aggressive overrides, so you're going to be +2 inch to the movement of the spiders, which puts them up to 8 inch, which is pretty fast, nearly catching up with those Scarab Swarms there. And also it gives them a weapon skill value of a 2+, and that isn't even a modifier, so you can still do a +1, -1 if there are any negative modifiers attached to your Canoptek Spider. The second one is the Enhanced Gloom Prism, so it's going to be a +2 to your Deny the Witch test, pretty good. And the third one is the Hyperdense Particle Beams, so your beamers are going to be -2 AP rather than 0 AP. So that one I think I'm going to be scoring to the Canoptek Spyders. I think there's a lot more synergy that I personally use with the Technomancers and the Scarabs. Right, on to Resiliency next. So with the Flayed ones, you've got 20 wounds at toughness 4 with a 4+ armor save. Now Reanimation Protocols of course works much better on 1 wound models, so you've got to add that. And also Resurrection Orbs or Orbs of Eternity are going to work much better on 20-man units. Now as for the Spiders, well, there's going to be 18 wounds in total there with toughness 6 and a 3+ armor save. Now they do have the Reanimation Protocols, but it's very unlikely that you'd be bringing one of these guys back. You've got to roll 6 5+ rolls. Yeah, not going to work. I have done it once in the past, but yeah, once in a blue moon that may happen. And of course they've got the Living Metal ability to be bringing a wound back, and worst case scenario, you get your Technomancer with the Rites of Reanimation to be bringing an entire model back from the dead. So again, I'm going to be giving that point to the Canoptek Spyders. Resiliency is much better, especially with that toughness 6. Right, on to damage output next, and we've got some maths for you today. So the Flayed ones, you can get 20 of them, and they're going with the Flare Claws, which are strength 4, -1 AP and 1 damage. Now you're getting 60 attacks that hit on a 3+, which will make you 40 attacks. And don't forget 6s will score an additional hit, so that will bring the average up to 50 attacks that have hit. Now going up against toughness 3, you're looking at around 26 to 27 wounds, Going up against toughness 4, you're looking at around 16 to 17. Toughness 5 right up to toughness 7, you're looking at around 11 wounds. And toughness 8, you're looking around 5 or 6. And this is before any invuln saves or any armor saves have been made. Now before we do, obviously you can buff all these figures with, say, the My Will Be Done ability, the Disruption Field stratagem, Protocol of Hungry Void, or even the Fight Against stratagem. There's lots of ways to buff these numbers. So the Canoptek Spyders, first of all we're talking about the melee side of it, because they've got ranged weapons on top if you do pay for them. So the melee side, they've got the claws, which are strength 8, minus 3 AP, and the damage is a flat 2. Now they've got 15 attacks with 3 models. They're hitting on 4s, unfortunately, so that's going to make around 7 to 8 hits on average. Now versus toughness 4, you're looking at around 6.3 wounds. Toughness 5 to toughness 7, you're looking at around 5 wounds. Toughness 8 is around 3 to 4 wounds, and toughness 9, 2 to 3 wounds. Now don't forget, each one of these is 2 damage, so they do look a little bit low, but when you do 2 damage, going up against the bigger stuff, you can literally double these figures because yeah, each one is 2. Again, they've got the options of My Will Be Done, the Disruption Field stratagem, the Protocol of Hungry Void, but also the Canoptek control node from your Technomancer if you were to select that. So I put all these figures on the screen so that we can actually see and compare what they do to each kind of toughness. So at first glance you're thinking, well, the Spyders are doing nowhere near what the Flayed ones are actually doing. So you'd probably give that point straight to the Flayed ones, but you need to remember that the lines are a bit squiffed because the Spider strength is slightly stronger. So I put these arrows in to help us today. And as you can see from this example, going up against toughness 5 to toughness 7, the Spyders are doing 5 wounds, and the Flayed ones going up against the same toughness of toughness 5 to toughness 7 is doing 11.1 wounds, which is almost double what the Spyders doing, but they're only 1 damage, whereas the Spyders are 2 damage. So they're not actually that far apart. The only one that is far apart is going up against toughness 3, which I've circled for you now. The Canoptek Spyders are doing 6.3 wounds, 2 damage a pop, whereas the Flayed ones are doing 26.7 wounds. That's where they really excel with their Flared claws. What you need to also remember is we haven't included any of the range attacks from the Canoptek Spyders. They've of course got the particle beamers, and each one of these Spyders takes 2 particle beamers, which are 6 shots apiece, 18-inch range, strength 5, no AP, and 1 damage. So they're going to be getting 12 shots each because they're taking 2 of these weapons, and when you've got 3 of them, that's 36 shots, hitting on 4s, that's averaging 18 hits. Now going up against toughness 3, toughness 4, you're looking at around 12 wounds, toughness 5 around 9 wounds, and toughness 6 onwards, you're looking at around 6 wounds. Again, you've got the options of the My Will Be Done and the Canoptek control node to buff those numbers even further, but when you add the range output to the melee output, the Spyders are actually coming out slightly better. Not against toughness 3 though, we've already established that. Flayed ones against toughness 3 is very good, but all the other figures, they're actually not too bad. But it all kind of depends on what the targeted unit is. If they're all 1 wound models, then the Flare claws are probably better anyway, because those damage 2 claws from the Canoptek Spyders are just going to go to waste. Right, that's the maths out of the way. Some of you like the maths, some of you don't. I put that in there. I don't always put them in all the videos, but yeah, let me know down in the comments if you do like the maths involved in the videos. Right, next we're on to the purpose. What is the purpose of the Flayed ones? Well, first of all, they've got the deep strike option, so it's an optional thing to do, getting onto objectives, or just slicing open something pretty valuable, especially when you've got a 20-man unit of them. Now the Canoptek Spyders, a little bit more reserved, they're a bit more tanky, getting onto the objectives in the no man's land, or even maybe your home objective. You're not likely going to be using the Veil of Darkness relic because the Canoptek Scab Swarms are not going to go with that Veil of Darkness, so you're going to lose that entire synergy by doing that. So even though the Flayed ones aren't that quick, they're still going to be using that deep strike ability and getting to the other end of the board. So it has that similar feel to the Lich Guard going up against the Canoptek Race, which was a previous video. One unit goes pretty far and beyond, and the other unit stays home and does the dishes. Right, let's get into the summary. This has been a long one, I think. Starting off with the advantages for the Flayed ones. We've got that they're hitting on a 3+, they've got the deep strike ability, more overall wounds with 20 in total, and more overall attacks with 60 in total. They've got the fight against stratagem, they're excellent versus 1 wound models, especially toughness 3 as we've established. They're infantry models, so they're going to interact with secondaries very differently to how the Canoptek Spyders interact with them. And it also interacts differently with the area terrain features as well. They're able to modify enemy leadership, reanimation protocols is going to work much better on these guys, and finally the Annihilation Legion as an option. That's the advantages. Disadvantages, well, they're not that tough. Only toughness 4 with a 4+ armor save, and not only that, the strength is only 4 as well. So not the greatest stats in terms of resiliency, and finally they've just got no ranged weapons whatsoever. So that's the Flayed ones. As for the Canoptek Spyders, we've got 3 of them here. They are strength 8 and damage 2 in melee, which is pretty beefy. So not only can they target infantry models, but they can target vehicles, monsters, because yeah, strength 8 is pretty good. They can be bringing back Canoptek Scarabs, They're better for overall synergy, especially with that Canoptek keyword. They've got ranged attacks with their particle beamers. They can fight into engagement range because they're monsters. They can fly. They're toughness 6, 3+ armor save, living metal. They've got the Deny the Witch with the Gloom Prism. They can heal vehicles with the Fabricated Claw Array. And they've got the Cult of the Cryptek as an option. Let me take a breath because that was a lot. Finally, the disadvantages. They're hitting on a 4+ because they are Canoptek after all. They've got less overall wounds as well as the attacks. They're not as good as the Flayed ones are against toughness 3. They've got less secondary objective options again because they are monster models, so they can't be doing things such as raise the banners for example. And finally, when you're fully upgrading these guys with the Gloom Prisms and the Particle Beamers, they are slightly more expensive than the Flayed ones. Whew. Right, so it's at that stage now of the video where I've got to make my selection. Now, I think I'm going to be going against the grain with this one. I think a lot of you guys are going to like the Flayed ones, but for me, I really like the Canoptek units, and in particular, I like the Canoptek Spyders, so that will be my pick today. That's probably going to anger a few of you, but let me know down in the comments below which one you would select and why. So guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. It's been a long one, but I'll see you tomorrow.